Modi government will be officially sworn in on Thursday, May 30th. The Prime Minister has set the tone so far on how he sees his second term in a series of speeches over the last couple of days. The message has also been one of inclusion, harping on Sabka Vishwas, with a reference to the insecurity minorities have felt. But even as this inclusive message has been welcomed, reports have emerged of a Muslim youth in Gurugram beaten up and forced to chant Jai Shri Ram. After the massive mandate that Prime Minister Modi has received, will ensuring that minorities and other backward classes feel safe be a priority? How key is the issue of social inclusion when India is poised for tremendous growth? Also, importantly, what are the key economic challenges Prime Minister Modi faces in his second term? To speak on all this and more, I am joined this evening by Swaminathan Iyer, consulting editor at ET Now, Mukund Padmanabhan, former editor at the Hindu Business Line, Sanjeev Srivastav, political commentator, and Osama Manzar, founder and director of Digital Empowerment Foundation. Welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us. Mukund, let me start by you. By very simply, what do you see as the biggest challenges for the second term of Prime Minister Modi? And do you think that from what he said so far, there seems to be an attempt to give a message of inclusivity, especially after the bitter election campaign?
Well, if you go through the text of what he said during the Central Hall in Parliament, it was certainly a statement-like kind of speech. But surely the most important thing is not what you say, but what you do. And so I still think he needs to walk the talk on this. The second thing is he suggested that the fear among minorities is an instilled fear, instilled not so much by the sort of political grouping that he represents, but it is something that is instilled by the opposition. And I'm not sure that is entirely right, or it's certainly not the whole story. And so to me, I think he did succeed in sending a message out to his legislators, and I think there were many messages, this being the most important one. I don't want to be cynical, but I still think we need to wait and see whether he delivers on this. But at the same time, I think it was significant that he said it, because minority is the word that the BJP doesn't use a lot.
Swami, how do you look at the messaging that has come from Prime Minister Modi so far? He had another speech today as well, where he talked about how chemistry has trumped arithmetic. Of course, a lot of these addresses are to BJP workers and his parliamentarians. So there is a sense of, celebrating the success. But he has attempted so far to, I wouldn't say conciliatory, but strike a note where he's reaching out to those who may not have voted for him.
Yes, very deliberately. It was a good speech, a good statesman-like speech, of the kind he has sometimes made in the past too. He is sometimes called the great divider, but in his speeches, including this one, he attempts to be the great unifier. He says that, what was the speech? Paraya hamara koi nahi ho sakta. Nobody can be separate or enemy of us. We have to be for not only those who voted for us, but for those who did not, because they are potential voters who we need to convince, rather than hit on the head. So it was a good way of putting it. Within his slogans of Sabke Saath Sabke Vikas, he has added Sabka Vishwas. That I want to take everybody along, everybody for development, and everybody's trust. Once again, he is emphasizing the need to win over other people who are the opponents. So this is not a triumphal cry of saying, Jai Bajrang Bali. It is an attempt to unite people and to get more people behind him. Very clearly he swears by the constitution and by the due process of law, unlike some of his colleagues. You might almost think from the speech that he is one of the moderates in the BJP, certainly compared to the antics of some guys on the outer fringe. I'm so happy that he said that he will never forgive Sadhvi Pragya for claiming that Nathuram Godse is a patriot. So all this to the good, but at the end of it all, he has made final speeches in the past, and the actual mob lynchings, beatings up, have left considerable shakiness, considerable fear among the minorities. So let us see what actually happens. I find that on the same day in the newspapers today, there is one Dalit professor arrested for something he said 2 years ago about saying, Dalits used to eat beef. What is wrong with that? That's true. But apparently he's being arrested for causing enmity between communities and for hurting the sentiments of religious groups. I mean, if this is the kind of action, I'm afraid it negates the sentiments of Mr. Modi's speech. And Mr. Modi needs to ensure that what he says is taken seriously by the chief ministers, by the police, and by all the other actors that constitute government.
Sort of a counterpoint to that, and let me come to you, Osama Manzar, with it. Yes, there have been instances in the papers today itself. There were just a few days ago instances from Madhya Pradesh which were reported, and supporters of Prime Minister Modi will argue that why is everything laid at the Prime Minister's door? Is it his personal responsibility if there are law and order issues in various states, and not all of them are ruled by the BJP? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so, this time in the second term, the Prime Minister has got a serious challenge, which is dual challenge. One is that I agree with most of the other panelists saying that, he has to win the Vishwas of the people. But I just want to bring back the numbers. If you really go back to the voting, actually it doesn't translate. More than 20% people of the country have voted him to come in power. So he has a challenge of 80% people to get their Vishwas. And the Vishwas is actually, it's like a two-edged sword. He has a Vishwas of his 20% or whatever the majority of his community, and the people that is BJP and RSS, they all support him. But and if he supports too much on the other side, whether it's minority, Dalit or others, then these people are also supposed to be getting angry, and so he has a challenge of how he keep on appeasing his own people. And he has to take the Vishwas of the rest of the 80% who has not voted him. But Prime Minister is
Osama, I just want to come to you on that 2080 formula that you've thrown up. I assume you mean in that 80% you're counting Indians who are not on the electoral rolls. Is that how you've come to that number?
No, it's very simple calculation. We are 130 crore, 135 crore,
yeah.
90 crore people are eligible. 65% of that who has gone to vote, and they have got about 40%, and you calculate that it will come not more than 25 crores in terms of the actual numbers, the absolute numbers. So you don't have to go through the percentage of the you have to go through the percentage of the polling that has happened, but they itself is the percentage which has gone to go to vote, and which itself is a percentage
fair.
Of the total.
Is that fair? Okay, let me open this up to debate. Sanjeev Srivastav, is that fair? And it's tricky times and a tricky conversation to have because there is an impression which has been created. There have been instances where minorities have felt threatened. Swaminathan Iyer has spoken about it as well. And here you have this first speech, which is like the speech in 2014 as well. But is it fair to say that 80% of the people of India have not made this choice?
See, that would then apply to each and every election of the country which has been held so far.
Yeah.
Because we have, had record voting, 65, 67, 66% turnout, and the ruling party getting about 38, 39% vote. So that would apply from the time of the first elections in 1952 to now to each of the elections. I really don't think that's, though absolutely technically speaking, Manzar is right there in his statistics, but that is the statistics which doesn't hold true in the first past the post system that we have adopted. Now coming to the bigger question of the Prime Minister's speech, I completely agree with some of the panelists, especially Swami, where he said that, see, what the Prime Minister said on Saturday, addressing his parliamentary party colleagues, the newly elected MPs, I think he's a great orator, he's a mesmerizing orator, but even taking that into account, it was one of his more inspiring speeches, is what I personally felt. Now, the problem is that we have heard him giving very good speeches with great intent, but what happens on the ground kind of negates that intent. So, what really one wants to see is that, and yes, I do agree, the person who, the group of miscreants or antisocial people or criminals, really honestly, who went up and beat up a man in Gurugram, did not take the permission or were not sent by the BJP top brass. It is the optics and the atmosphere and the narrative in the country. So, the Prime Minister really needs to go beyond making the right statement. I don't want to be a cynic, I don't want to be a skeptic. It was his first major address made in the Central Hall, very sore by the Constitution. I really, as an Indian citizen, want to completely believe him, and I want to hold him on his word. So now what is important is that a clear message should also go out from the Prime Minister that he will brook no nonsense. He will be very intolerant towards these kind of antisocial elements who will who will exploit this narrative, this huge win, to further their own agenda, which should be, so the proof of the pudding will be in eating as to how these people who take the law into their hands and go forward and do these kind of things, how they are dealt with by the law enforcement agencies, by the police. If they are punished, then these things will stop, I am sure. And the number two thing, Mr. Modi is the biggest election winning machine that we have. And I quite sincerely think and believe that he wants now to take the minorities along because he wants to make his mandate in 2024 even bigger, even more strong. So even politically, apart from being the right thing to say and the right thing to want as a part of the Raj Dharma, even politically it makes sense for him to also take along the one community or one group which has not yet joined the BJP bandwagon in any kind of decent numbers. So his priorities are right, and the only one thing which I would like to say, that he has never, to the best of my knowledge, he has talked about ki sabko saath lekar chalna hai, those who have not voted for us are also with us, but he has never specifically said minorities, because using the minorities word is something, a big leap of faith for the BJP and for Mr. Modi. So I think, to the best of my knowledge, in this first term he never used the word minorities. He kept saying sabko saath lena hai, kisi ko nahi chhodna hai, but never used the word minorities. So I would like to attach significance to that. I would like to believe the Prime Minister.
I'm just going to get a quick response from Osama Manzar to the point.
As to how much
since you responded to his point, I'm just going to get a quick response to Osama Manzar. Also, a lot of people have been saying and asking that with such a huge mandate, is it possible that minority communities were completely out of it and none of them voted for Modi? Are we perhaps not understanding this mandate completely? Or is this, just a kind of an image that the BJP wants to create?
I don't know. I hope you that question to thinking that I'm a minority, because I have never felt like that. So, but nevertheless, we all are actually saying the same thing. Even if that is the reason that he must have assumed that no minority has given him a vote, that perhaps that is also a very good political pitch to prove a point that I would still like to take you into consideration and work for your development, which is absolutely very unlike of saying from the party that he comes from. And therefore it is going to be dependent on how this word is going to be translated on the ground. And everybody has said that. You have said sabka vishwas, you have said sabka vikas, we have used minority. that is the biggest population, that is always considered to be not part of the developmental agenda of BJP. And therefore, this is a very, very prime ministerial kind of speech. And therefore, next few months are going to be very, very, important to see that how much of those words are going to be translated on the ground. So I think, like everybody said, I am also saying the same thing. It is important that he has mentioned the word Vishwas, because I think he knows that the Vishwas is one thing that has not been proven in the last 5 years, properly. And he has to work on that.
Swami, let me come to why this is so key and why there has been so much focus on it. One, of course, as Sanjeev said, that it may have been the first time when he's spoken the word minority clearly and talked about it in this way. But in the bigger picture of what this mandate means and what the people of India are now asking for from Prime Minister Modi to pitch this country to the next level and believing that this is the man that can do so. And in order to do so, he effectively has to take everyone along, doesn't it? Does FDI work? Do global ratings work if there is communal violence in the country?
Well, look, he has certainly used the word minority in the sense that he keeps accusing the Congress party and the others of saying, you are constantly appeasing the minorities. So there's no question he constantly mentioned the minorities as being cultivated as vote banks by the Congress or the left or by other regional parties for cynical political purposes. So he has mentioned the word minority. But let's get away from the semantics. What is the action he is going to take with this large majority? Please consider what the program of the BJP always has been. It has been, we are going to abolish the Article 370 of the Constitution in relation to Kashmir so that we can, so to speak, repopulate that entire area with Hindus and take it over. They are in favor of a uniform common civil code which would do away with Muslim or Christian personal law. They are in favor of changing the Minorities Commission into another. So, these are all parts of the BJP agenda. Technically speaking, you can argue that a uniform civil code or Article 370, these are not communal issues, right? You can see even a secular person can believe in these particular things. The actual impact of them on the ground level, I'm afraid, will be to inflame communal feelings. You will get the Hindu fringe, the extreme Hindu fringe, going rah-rah as though, a great victory is being won, when in fact it's going to become a very difficult situation. I personally, as a secular person, have always been in favor of a uniform civil code. In my view, that is the right way to go. But there's no doubt that if you implement it, it will be seen by Muslims as an anti-Muslim move. It will be seen by the Christians as an anti-Christian move. I would go ahead with it. Does Modi have credibility on the secular front that he is doing a secular thing and not a Hindu thing? I think he has yet to demonstrate it. So if you ask me, he's made the speech, but if he implements his party's program on some of these key issues, and I see no reason why he will not. I mean, if he's got this big majority and he's likely to get a majority in the Rajya Sabha, why should he not go through with these things which have been the bedrock of the BJP's program for the last 30 years? So I anticipate some serious trouble ahead.
Mukund, do you agree with that? Because the attempts to further these issues were not very vociferous in term one. And again, there was a good size majority there as well.
Yeah, I think, there was that symbolic bowing the head before the Constitution, which he did when he went, before he delivered his speech in Central Hall. And I think that was intentional to suggest that, at least to suggest that he will uphold it. But as Swami said, we need to look at this 2 or 3 years from now, because they'll soon have a majority in the Rajya Sabha as well. And the process of ushering in constitutional amendments, which were difficult in the first term, those obstacles will go. And there are people in the Congress who have said that, this is exactly what they're waiting for, and this attempt to rewrite the constitution, make it a Hindu Rashtra. Even if those things are, those worries are alarmist, there are real issues, as Swami says, which have been part of the BJP agenda. Article 370 is one, there are others as well, the Common Civil Code and so on. And it's really interesting. I mean, it's going to be really worrying, and really, I think we all need to keep our eyes on this to see how they're going to deal with this. Because with a complete majority, he's going to run out of, excuses to not implement these things that are part of the agenda. And there is I think his big challenge in this respect is how he manages his own people from his own ideological bloc, how he's going to deal with them and how he's going to manage this. I think he may have a real problem because they are people with extreme views in that parivar, and he needs to find a way of keeping them in check. And this applies as much to the the lynchings and to the fear and so on as to this.
I want to expand that as well. When we talk about social challenges for this government, and we've spent some time talking about his statement on minorities, etc. But what are the other social challenges we see? And in this, would you not include, in this question again for Mr. Padmanabhan, would you not include the widening gap in places between the rich and the poor, class distinctions, which he's overridden through the mandate, but now has to ensure that those gaps narrow down to make sure that the atmosphere remains peaceful?
It's about the 2019 verdict, and he's hinted at this on the speech itself, which is that the BJP is now the party of the subaltern classes. They have grown and they have expanded in a way that seem to have caught the fancy of exactly the classes that a sort of liberal elite would speak in favor of. This is the body that has given them this huge mandate. So I still think the real issue is not may not manifest itself as simply as managing the rich and the poor. It probably will manifest itself in managing the huge aspirations that people already have, and this is going to grow going forward. The communication revolution, the media revolution, access to information has just set off a great deal of aspirations, and I think we've seen this in movements, in caste movements, agrarian movements, and so on. And I think that's the big challenge. We might grow stronger as an economy, but is this going to enough to deal with what I think is a great aspirational urge among the Indian population? Not just only at the bottom, but the bottom half, if you like.
Osama Manzar, let me get you in on this question as well. In terms of the social challenges for Prime Minister Modi in term 2, and of course he's faced them in term 1 as well, whether it's the rural sector and the issues they faced, and there were the issues of OBC communities wanting reservation that has been assuaged to some extent with a 10% reservation, but now it has to be implemented. What are the challenges you see here?
Actually, I wanted to take Mukund's point further by saying that if you dissect the speech, he is elected very, very politically. Last 5 years was also very, very political. What most of the people were expecting to have a developmental agenda to be on the foreground, which was actually totally bypassed by BJP, on which they wanted to fight an election. So it's a winning of an election on a totally political way, but you have to take it further on a developmental agenda or a developmental steps, and that is where I think the Vishwas will come. But that will come only when you have a social peace, and the social peace was not that, was always a subject of question in the last 5 years. And since we work a lot in rural India with digital interventions, there is a serious issue of job. There is a serious issue of engagement. There is a serious issue of livelihood, and all those things. And with connectivity rising, and people are getting more and more connected. Things are also becoming very, very transparent, and it can't be hidden. So what is a big challenge is also to translate the Vishwas by doing developmental activities, and keep yourself away from political agendas, which has been mostly highlighted by Swami, that those are going to be challenged on the other side. But of course, what we call as development, where job is important, engagement is important, livelihood is important, entitlement reaching to the people is important. All these are subjects that we need to look at, that how the Vishwas is going to be translated into delivering them.
Sanjeev, let me get your point of view on the key social challenges we see for the Modi government in its 2.0 avatar. And we spoke a fair bit about minorities and other social classes, but what about the youth? The youth have come out in hordes to vote for this government, and as much as joblessness didn't end up being a big political issue for the elections, it does remain a big challenge, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I'd just like to reiterate that when I said that Prime Minister Modi never mentioned minorities in his first 5 years, 2014 to 19, was in the sense that of course he used minorities word to rubbish the opposition, but he never used the minorities word that he's going to take them along with him. That's the first, number one. Number two, these contentious issues, if this was a regular BJP government, they would have been bound down by things like Article 370, Uniform Civil Code, it's Ram Janmabhoomi. But Mr. Modi is different, his mandate is different. People have not voted for the BJP and BJP's core agenda. People have voted for Modi, and that's a separate debate altogether as to why and how. Whether it is Vishwas in him, whether is he a strong leader, nationalist leader, Hindu leader, what have you, or no other alternative, that can be a separate debate. So Mr. Modi is not bound by the compulsions of the BJP of the past. He has also rid himself of that baggage somehow. So I think he may still do all of those things, but he is not bound to, because in a very strange kind of a manner, this was a rare election where actually Mr. Modi made not a single promise. His first 2014 campaign had so many promises, so many slogans. This time there was just this focus on national security and how he's going to take India forward and make it get its rightful place in the world committee. There was no single promise which he can actually be held up to or held accountable for or answerable.
Full of promises. No, but the manifesto is full of promises.
This was a completely different election.
Yeah, but the manifesto is full of promises. There is 75 things by 75 years.
You only hold the man to the speeches he made. I'm just being pragmatic and political there.
Yeah.
Now the real challenge is, like some of the panelists have said, the real challenge is of course to manage the social equation, social harmony, but even a bigger challenge is to deliver on development, because you need to get the growth kick started, you need to get the economy going, you need to have a better infrastructure, you actually need to deliver on making a better India for tomorrow, Naya Bharat. So he has to do that, and I think he will do that, keeping all the constraints in mind, keeping what will deflect his attention from delivering on Naya Bharat. I think he will, at least I wish it even more that he does that he does not get deflected in on issues of emotion or emotive issues, and really concentrates on delivering what he has hinted at all through his campaign, a prosperous, powerful country. So for that, he has to take everybody along. At least that's what my wisdom or my thinking suggests. What he does, we will all know, and we'll be debating and talking about that in the months and years to come.
May I leave you with the last word and to talk about the kind of welfare politics we saw in term 1, which seems like it will only expand. The PM Kisan Yojana is one, Ayushman Bharat has to be fully rolled out as of now, and there will come the tough decision of whether we can afford it, isn't it?
I think that the PM is a successful welfarist and a successful development worker. He does not see a contradiction between the two. If you have development and you get additional revenues, part of that revenue should be used for welfare schemes. He has not gone overboard. I mean, his PM Kisan scheme of 6,000 rupees per farmer, it was less than what KCR was offering to his farmers in Telangana of 8,000. It is less than 12,000 that Naveen Patnaik was offering in Odisha, or the 72,000 that Rahul Gandhi offered as part of his party manifesto. Yes, so welfareism is part of it, it's an important part of it, but it's not just giveaways. I think Narendra Modi has been elected because he's seen as being serious on welfare schemes in a way in which previous politicians were just cynical. I mean, the Congress party brought in public distribution system so leaky, grain didn't get there, low quality, didn't work properly at all. On the other hand, now Mr. Modi comes with Jan Dhan Yojana. Has it reached 100% of the people? No, it has reached perhaps 80%. But even to get to 80%, it required a strong commitment and a drive to get there. Similarly, Swachh Bharat, has it reached 100%? No. I have seen many non-functional toilets in rural areas, and yet 70-75% have been done, are actually working, double the original number. Is there anything new about sanitation? Every Prime Minister has talked about sanitation. Mahatma Gandhi was for sanitation. Is there anybody before Modi who went out of his way to hammer and monitor it and make quite sure it was working? No. On this he has stood out. So I think Mr. Modi will be saying the issue is not how many welfare programs, but is there a commitment to make them work? Is there a commitment to see that if there are any problems or glitches, you get your staff after it? I think if a Prime Minister makes it very, very clear that he has a very strong priority on some of these things, they get done. They don't get done if you just say, I have a right to education, and then you do nothing about teachers not attending schools or the general pathetic quality of education. So that kind of non-serious approach will not work. Modi is seen as more serious. I think he will certainly go on this, on the development front. He will want to improve the quality of services. I do hope he makes basic education a big thing. I do hope he makes police judicial reform a big thing. Those are areas which are extremely important. I mean, you say social. People want security. They don't feel secure. The police system does not give them security. People want justice, and the courts do not give quick redressal at all. So these are extremely important public goods. They are goods required by everybody. But they are required especially by the poor and by those at the bottom of the ladder who need these particular avenues. They need high quality basic education, they need security, they need judicial redress. So I do hope Mr. Modi attacks these areas.
No, absolutely. In the first 5 years and towards the election period, we heard that, 5 years is perhaps not enough for the vast problems that we face as a country. Well, here are 5 years more with an unfettered mandate. Let's hope for the best. Thank you to all of you for joining us on the India Development Debate this evening. And before I sign off, I just want to play out some pictures from this weekend, which is of the Amethi Member of Parliament, former Union Minister Smriti Irani, in her constituency after the death of her close aide Surendra Singh. It's a powerful image of Smriti Irani being a pallbearer for her close aide. And when they talk about how norms can change and women have to move forward, well, this is an example. This is a picture that can truly change how women are defined and seen in the Indian context. And for that, kudos to the new Member of Parliament from Amethi. That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us.